Hello, community. You are listening to Conversations with Chanda, where leadership gets real and personal. This is where we cut through the noise to confront the issues shaping our world and our community. From power and justice to the heart of community change. Hosted by me, Chanda Smith Baker, President and CEO of the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation. Thank you for joining me on Conversations with Chanda. It is quite a pleasure to meet you. Supak, who produces the podcast, met you and thought that you would be an incredible guest. And so I have asked very few questions because I just want to be curious and pull out all that we can about what we are facing as women in leadership, what the possibilities are, and to talk a little bit about your journey. So thank you for joining me. And if you would not mind, if you could just introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you very much. My name is Harriette Chiggai. I'm a lawyer by profession, and currently I serve the President of Kenya as the Women's Rights Advisor, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean, those words hardly reflect what it probably took for you to become the advisor to the president. Can you talk a little bit about your journey to getting there?
Thank you very much. It's been a long journey, and I must say not an easy journey. I started off, I could clearly say maybe from when I finished college. My work generally has been highly inspired by my mother. Let me just say it that way. Born in a small slum in a small city called Nakuru. While we were growing up, I think the entire area was really the low-income earners. And my parents had to send us to boarding school while we were very young. So I went to boarding in class 4, that is barely about 10 years old, went to boarding. And I think that's where my journey began, because when you get to boarding, you're forced to really grow very fast, boarding school. And in Kenya, our boarding schools were really good. Actually, they're a safe haven for the children growing up within the low-income earning environment. So my journey started in boarding school, and I really liked that period, because from the time I was a little girl, I was always picked to be a leader, either to train or to lead other small children. So I used to do a lot of dancing. I used to do a lot of teaching other smaller kids, small games. And we'd even get to competition. I remember we used to dance a dance called Scottish. Mm-hmm. And the reason as to why I joined that team is because we'd go to the nationals directly. And the school would win anyway, because there were very few Scottish dancers in the country. But by and large, yes, I would do a lot of poetry as well. I used to write poetry, and other children would recite my poems and they win. And I used to recite as well. So over to high school, same story. I was made the games prefect. At some point, I was made a prefect of all prefects, because I used to stand my ground. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to be a lawyer from a very young age. And the reason as to why I wanted to be a lawyer from a young age was to actually deal with the injustices in the society. And because of that and the drive that I had, I think I carried that forward. So over to high school, same story. I remember in school sometimes teachers would cane you, like group punishments, simply because...
Wait, they would do what?
Group punishments. Mm-hmm. A class is making noise, all of you are beaten.
Like beaten?
Yeah. We used to be beaten our times in school. Like discipline was a cane, So I remember in one of those instances, I refused to be beaten. I just told the teacher I came to high school so that I don't get to be beaten. Like I'm done with canes, It was normal, to have caning in school. And the teacher decided to make me a games prefect out of that. So I didn't get punished, but I was made a prefect. So that already told me that I have to plug into leadership. Or rather, I got into leadership from a very young age. And I took my team, my basketball team, to nationals after a 15 years break. So having gone through boarding, I found myself always 2 years ahead of my peers. Over to campus, I did law, And within that space, I was in leadership as well. I still played basketball for my university. I was a representative of the university in Kenya Model United Nations. And by the time I finished high school, campus, I had done 2 jobs. I was part of the researchers for the Constitution Review Commission of our country then. I was working under 2, Professor Pielo Lumumba and Nancy Baraza, who's the current chair of our GBV and Femicide Committee for the President. So by the time I finished campus, I had several jobs, and I left campus with a job. So by the time I get myself into the law school where we were doing 2 years, I was actually having a job, and so it has never been easy, but I've never looked back. Yeah.
That's really helpful context. And I'm trying to translate in my mind a couple of things. One is you were from a low income community, which you called a slum.
Yeah.
And also you went to boarding school. So was school free?
No, born with parents who were civil servants at the time. My mother was a teacher. And remember, teachers would be moved from one area to another very easily. And my mother had to go back to the countryside so that she teaches from a small school within the countryside. And my father had to be moved to another region. So by virtue of that, it was not viable for us children to still go to day school because of that imbalance. The small income areas then within our country were slightly decent because you'd find it's a one-roomed house with a one small kitchen, and a one room. But that was the home where we knew when we were growing up. So all of us had to go to boarding. My mother had to go to the rural setup. And that is how now I moved from one school to the other, but boarding. And then from that, I went to law school. My other siblings did very well. But within those periods, I think my parents caught up, Like going to the farm, my mother decided to do a lot of farming. So they caught up. And we were liberated from the low income setup to fairly decent home now, because she did a lot of farming. We went to my grandmother's. From my grandmother's, they bought their own land where my father is up to now. And the farm was very productive. So that is how we went to high school, By the time I was getting to college, I think we were fairly, very stable. But 4th year of my going to school, I actually paid my fees because my younger sister was already joining campus engineering. My brother was already in campus doing engineering. My big sister in Oxford, fully sponsored at that time. And then myself, law school. So still it was heavy on my parents. So I did quite a bit to sustain myself, both in school. And from there, I think whichever job I applied, I got, because I want to believe I was 2 or 3 steps ahead of my peers. From then, finished law school, got into leadership within the Law Society of Kenya, within the committees, and it has never been the same. It was from one position to another, to serving as council member in Law Society of Kenya, to becoming the vice president of the Law Society of Kenya, to transitioning to East Africa Law Society as a council member and secretary general, and now to this position. So, and within that, I was still doing my job as a practicing lawyer.
So I don't know much about Kenya.
Yeah.
What can you share with me about Kenya, and particularly about women in leadership in Kenya?
Well, when it comes to women in leadership, we are still lagging behind. You find this is the first government that has registered the highest number of governors. We have 47 governors in our country, but this particular government actually, we had about 7 elected governors, and we lost 1 seat, and now there are 6. When you look at matters to do with the balancing the parliament, we are still not there yet. Our parliament is not balanced. You see, it's still unconstitutional. We have the 1/3 rule in terms of representation, but when you look at political representation, it's the people who elect. we are still lagging behind, and the question is why. You find most of the women don't have enough resources to run an election. You find these issues to do with GBV. You find there's still issues to do with biases, whether women can take lead or not in some areas, like where I come from, the Western region, we do not have even a single elective seat, single constituency seat. So what does that tell you? Our traditions are still holding women back. We have issues to do with finance, and also an opportunity to actually have these women take up leadership positions. So we have done well in terms of private sector. You find there are big blue chip companies like Safaricom, KCB. They have actually ensured that we have enough women within their boards. We have women in leadership, but that's not enough. Public sector, private sector, we need to work together to ensure that we push the number of women, and that has to be deliberate. When you look at leadership and elective positions, there's a lot that needs to be done, because most of the political parties we have, most of them are male-owned, you know. Do we have enough laws to push women into leadership? Yes, the laws are there. But is there political goodwill? Yes, there could be political goodwill, but is there opportunities and is there space for these women to take up these key leadership positions? And the answer, we have it out there, is that we still have the gaps. The gaps that still affect women in terms of leadership are still there. Biases, financial gaps, the society itself. In some regions, women are still not accepted as leaders. Mm-hmm. So these issues will still be there for a long time. Not unless we all are deliberate to ensure that we push as enough women into leadership positions as possible.
Yeah, the other statement that you made was about you didn't come to school to get caned or to get beaten, which implies that there was a different path that would be harmful. So you just laid out sort of the professional lens, the political lens. But what do we need to understand about the safety or the lack of protection of women?
Well, our office currently, we are running a campaign on safe homes, safe spaces. Why so? We want to believe that we must create safe homes and safe spaces for all women and girls. On matters education, the government actually put a policy on a no-cane kids policy. Why was that? It's because it became an abuse. In some schools, it was misused, you know. There are some schools where children lost their lives, children were hurt. And again, the measure of punishment to a child cannot be done using a cane. You know, for instance, if you look at the children who were really beaten while they were growing up, there's a misconnection somewhere. You know, in fact, in our country, they say the millennials are abused parents. You know, the kind of training, the kind of schools we went to, they were simple or near militant schools. But that has since changed, because currently, as we speak, the education sector in our country has really changed, where we have a full return to school policy for the young girls, and issues to do with caning of children has actually been stopped. But when it comes to creating the safe spaces for women and girls, you find that issues to do with GBV are still prevalent. You know, GBV in our country, especially last year, we even added femicide to it. Well, when you look at women leaders as well, what happens is we have a new trend on technology-assisted GBV, TFGBV, where you find AI has checked in. Women are being torn apart for as long as they want to get into leadership positions. Personally, I am a victim of TFGBV, not once, not twice. Even as I speak now, I have a case in court where I sued a fellow lawyer who was very aggressive on how can a woman rise to this level if you didn't sleep around, you know. So that perception is still there, that you cannot make it if nobody else can actually place you there. It's not about your qualifications.
Yeah, can you explain what that is, the GBV?
TFGBV is where the social platforms are used to insult women, to push women to the wall so that they actually don't run for elections. We've had instances where women have actually been aggressed, you know, your naked photos are thrown everywhere in the social media, whether it's true or not, but the damage has already been done. Fabricated stories about you, you know. Most people do that. They don't even think about your families. They don't think about your children. They don't think about the impact or the effects of their action and aggression that is doing not only to you, but everybody around you. So you find the current trend is actually even killing people. They kill you, put you in a coffin, and they share all that out there, you see. So technology, in my view also, has been used badly. And the question then is, how do we safeguard data? How do we safeguard the private spaces for leaders and anybody else, not just leaders? How do we protect women and children within the technology space, you know? So that for me also boils a whole question on data governance. How do we protect data that we already have? Because how do people even get my private phone and I didn't give it out? And use that as a platform not only to abuse me, but abuse anybody else who's interconnected within my space, you know? So we as leaders, as women leaders, I think there's a lot that still needs to be done to protect and create the safe spaces for women leaders and even the young girls who are coming up. And it's as bad as young people now. If you find young female leaders, most of them don't want to take leadership roles. In fact, you bar very good people from taking up leadership roles because of the negativity within the spaces of governance, within the spaces where we consider them safe for anybody, you know. So a lot still needs to be done. We are still not quite there. And that is why for us, our rallying call is that we must create the safe spaces for women and girls. It doesn't matter where, whether it's the workspace, whether it's at home, whether it's the streets when the women and children are just walking around. You find that currently as we speak, there's a lot of aggression towards young girls. And not young girls alone, even boys now. You know, long time ago you'd say girls are not safe. But now we are saying children are not safe. Because we took a lot of weight on a girl. We also forgot that this young man that we are not protecting and we are harassing now will actually be an abuser in future. So we need to take care of children wholesomely and make the young boys understand that a society that does not take care of its women will never take care of its children. And a society that loses its women and children has no future, you know. So a lot needs to be done. And within our country, we now have the GBV Femicide Committee that was put in place by His Excellency. It's actually an executive office of the President task force, which is looking at issues to do with GBV and femicide. And we are hoping that by the time we are done with that work, matters to do with GBV will be matters of the past. Within our office also, we've decided when it comes to issues to do with GBV, we look for the perpetrators or the supposed perpetrators, because for a long time, everybody has been dealing with a victim. But now we are saying we need to stop looking at the victims. Women should stop crying. Can we try and stop the scourge? And the answer is yes. We can only do that by creating more awareness, by reaching out to the same spaces or the same persons whose number in terms of aggression to women is high. When you look at data, data also tells us that those who are aggressing or aggressors against women are actually women, persons who are very close to them. In most cases, it's husbands, intimate partners, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend situation, or within a home setup. A father against the child, an uncle against niece, nephew. So children are not safe within the spaces where it needs to be safe. So are the women. Because those who rape women, those who hurt women, are people close to them or people who've been around them. A majority of them are people who've been around them for a long time or they have a relationship. So hence the Safe Home, Safe Spaces campaign that we are running to ensure that we create awareness as bold as it can be and as far wide as we can spread the information so that people can just take care of women and children.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just feel a little bit emotional actually about this. And what is coming up for me is, number one, a young Black woman who just lost her life.
Yeah.
In the north side of Minneapolis, a domestic situation, and was shot and killed. And that was very recent. And we know that there are a lot of things that are going on that we will never know, that will show up in our workspaces and community in different ways because they're being hurt and harmed. The other is the school shootings, the political violence that we've seen here in our state. I guess my question to you is, what do you think that we need to learn in our country about making safe space a reality?
Well, I think we all need to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, are we being human beings or animals? Or are animals behaving better than human beings? Yeah, because it's insane to actually see the kind of violence that is meted against human beings by human beings. You know, what is so hard in us to reboot ourselves and tell ourselves we are different because we have feelings. We are humans. Is it so hard to take care of your neighbor? And your neighbor can be anybody. Is it so hard for us to be good people? Like, can we not just do one good act every day? Is it that we must be cruel? Do we have to be forced to just be good people? What happened to human beings and the art of care? You know, like, can't you just wake up and be nice to the next person? Serve them a cup of tea, you know, check on your neighbors, whether they're okay, whether they slept okay. It sounds more spooky because we left humanity. We've just become bad people, you know, and the art of togetherness, the art of socialization, the art of how we socialized even as we grew up. And now with the coming of the internet and phones and name it, the interaction between humans has now been stopped by something called a phone. Mm-hmm. Now, instead of us having conversations, our conversations are behind screens. Yeah. So we are actually losing the human touch, which in my view, we should recalibrate and take it back and find ways of solving our differences differently.
When there's all kinds of ways that we see people and we see countries, and what did you learn about America growing up in Kenya?
It's my first time in Minneapolis, and I can say the one thing I like about here is actually order. Despite the fact that there's a lot of the insecurity right now, and maybe it could be attached to the elections or something that is going on, order is good. Any society that has order, I think you can be able to plan and do many things. Having grown and bred in Kenya, there's one thing that I think both cities can intertwine. The art of coming together and doing things as communities, the art of communities sitting in and saying, hey, wait a minute, we have to take care of each other because nobody else is going to do it. You can't wait for someone to come from anywhere else to actually come and tell you how you should live. But if you live within a community and you know there are specific gaps within that community, no matter whether it's security, whether it's matters to do with education, compassion. I had an opportunity to go to the Metro Transit and just to listen to the women there and the kind of work they're doing within the community. It was very impressive. They do CSR activities where they bring the families together. They have set up community CSR where they help communities within their spaces. And I'm like, that would be good, because if everybody would take time, even if it's 1 hour a week, just to do community work, to take care of their neighbor, to watch over something, that would go a long way, because we are rebooting the communities to plug in and be grounded on the safety nets and to care about each other. I think the art of caring is what we need to bring back in humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And does it feel more orderly than you imagined it to be?
Well, it is. It's very orderly from someone coming from outside. Very busy in terms of you can barely see anybody out here. I think everybody is somewhere working, and then you can barely see people in the streets, not unless it's very intentional. But again, I guess it's how the city has been made. Back home, we are more outside than inside. In fact, we like being more outside. So you'll find us working from out there, take a laptop, sit outside and do a work. We are in buildings, but because of a good weather also, we don't need to really walk within buildings and all. So the fresh air and meeting people every day in Africa is different from here, where you find everybody's in the subways, in the offices, walking in between the small corridors, interconnecting buildings. So you rarely see people here. But back home, you actually see people. Yeah.
It's an interesting point, particularly what you just talked about in terms of being in relationship with each other. So can you see the barrier to like how we might interact together? Like, do you see that as like there's order, but do you think that creates a barrier for like getting to know people and the human piece that you have been describing?
Well, I also tend to think maybe because you work per hour and shift, you tend to be too busy. Our work schedule is 8 to 5. So between 6:30 and 8, you could go to the gym, work out, meet people there, have a chat, get ready, go to work. You could do your work between 1 o'clock, take a lunch break, meet people somewhere, have a chat, go back to work. Between 2 o'clock and 5, back on your desk. From 5, you can decide. You can go out, take a drink for 5 minutes, meet people before you get to your house. I think maybe that's what is different there and here, because we have a lot of time to actually interact, and we like it. Over the weekends, you'll find people visiting each other. I could quickly go and call somebody, say, hey, I'm coming to see you for a few minutes. Or you can call a sister and say, you know what, I'm passing by. So life there is easier in terms of you have everybody around you that you can offload something. You can quickly call your brother and say, okay, I need my car to be dropped by the mechanic. I don't know whether that's possible here. Or you can actually call a mechanic where you are to fix your car, and they'll come and do it, and then you go, So trying to make life easy, trying to interact more, trying to have social setups. I think we have more of that, and putting families together. So you find that I can easily take a drive to my mother's place or my grandmother's place or my, for illustration purposes, or a brother's place or a sister's place. I can take my children and dump them in a friend's place for 2 hours, go do what I want to do, and then come back, or go with my children wherever I'm going and we come back. So you find that young mothers are always having their bundle of joys with them, even within the markets and all that. And I think that could be something that is missing here because of caregivers. So you find parents are overworking, they are overworking round the clock, But I'm impressed that Minneapolis is actually an 8 to 5 kind of city. It's not a 24-hour city. So families get to meet every evening, if at all, yeah.
Earlier, you were also talking about public policy to protect women and children. What are the barriers, if any, are you finding to advancing those protections?
I think in Kenya, or generally in Africa, the biggest barrier on protection of women and children is basically how our mindset is. Who is a woman? Who's a child? You find in some communities, women and children are equated to animals. Like if I come and say, hey, how are you doing, John, today? How is family? He'll say all the cows and goats are fine. without even making reference to the wife and the children. Because in some communities, animals could be more valued, as assets. In some communities, you find women are not heard. They're supposed to be housewives. They're supposed to cook. They're supposed to take care of children. And that is the culture. So to undo that culture will take a long time because it's in the mindset. To undo the damage that has been done over time will also take a lot. And that is why you find strong women or women who have made it into leadership position. They didn't just get there. They have fought wars. They have been fought. A lot of things have actually been done along those lines for them to reach where they have reached. And most of them actually, when they have stories to tell, very painful stories to tell in most cases. And you find that also discourages many young girls from getting there. Mm-hmm. So culture, for me, needs to be rebooted because you find there are some communities women actually believe being beaten is to be loved. They've been cultured that way, They actually don't know that is aggression towards them. Look at matters to do with FGM, that is female genital mutilation. In some communities, despite the fact that our government has put laws to say don't do it, they still hide their babies and they're still doing it, including, if not, taking them to countries across where it is legalized, they do the cuts and bring the children back. So our country, in terms of legal laws and regulations, there's a lot that is going around that space. But when it comes to implementation, the implementers are the same cultural people who are really biased towards a woman and girl. So you find we still have problems. There are some communities women can still not own land. There are some areas where if you're a widow, you can't inherit your husband's property, despite the fact that laws are there. So you find our work as women rights advisor and with the Ministry of Gender and all the players within that sector, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of training. There's a lot that needs to be done in terms of awareness because laws are there, rules are there, but implementation of that is a big problem. For instance, when you go to some schools, you find that children can't go to school sometimes because the parents expect them to go and fetch water. They didn't eat last night. So the government is really trying to put school feeding programs in school. So we have to accelerate what the government is doing and support that. Because if you teach a hungry child, it is very difficult for that child to perform. We also have schools where children have never seen a phone. They don't know what a computer is. Yeah. So our work basically is to accelerate that and try and, refurbish these schools, put in place virtual libraries so that all these children can actually compete globally, if not with the city-centered kids. So a lot still needs to be done because education for me is an equalizer. If a woman and a child is not well educated, we'll still go back to the societal problems. We'll still go back to cultural practices. We'll still go back to women embracing, violence as part of, cultural way of saying my husband is still around and he still cares about me. That's why he bet me because I went out and I got late and I still didn't need to come and explain where I was because in most cases they get killed. When you look at the young ones who are coming now, it's like we have lost the sense of emotional intelligence. By the time I was arriving here, there's a young girl whose husband killed her simply because she came home late. And funny enough, she was from the same job where she goes every day with her mother. And her mother says, bye, my daughter, go home. The mother checks on her. Have you arrived home? Yes, mom. The next thing she hears is that her daughter has been murdered. Why? She got home late. So what does that tell us? The young men we are breeding or we are bringing up have no sense of emotional intelligence. They cannot weigh and say, well, this is the measure of a war I can put between myself and my wife. So why are you killing somebody because they got home late? Doesn't make sense at all. You know?
Are there consequences?
Oh yes, murder is murder. But we also have, I don't want to give excuses on these GBV issues. Mental health is also highly prevalent now because we might assume that everybody is normal. But the truth of the matter is that we have so many patients out here who are dealing with mental health related issues, but it's not even diagnosed, you know? So our emotional imbalance is so high and there's no one to calm that down. So I tend to think there are various factors that are at interplay, but there must be serious consequences in such cases.
Yeah. You shared that women that are advancing in their leadership have a lot of very painful journey stories to share. I recognize that it's not always safe to do that, but how important is it for women to disclose what they're navigating so that other women don't feel isolated? And is there a consequence to that in terms of people not wanting to come in? So this is a story that I've been very familiar with, of the stories of leadership that people don't want to share, but then other women don't realize that what they're in is similar to what someone else is experiencing. So what is the importance of us sharing our stories as women leaders?
I think for me, it's very important that women leaders share their story. And even when they're sharing their story, they should mentor the young upcoming ones to go through the same journey and make it easier for them. Why do I say that? You know, when young people see women who've made it, they believe, wow, they just got it easy. You get all these brands because nobody understands the kind of journey that you've had to reach where you are. And you find women who share their story, you actually lift somebody else who is in a similar situation and they actually don't know what to do. So sometimes sharing your story and even sharing how you navigated the challenges that you went through actually can save another woman who's going through the same journey, because it's similar everywhere, all over the world. Because every time I meet women leaders, they have a story to tell. They have ways they navigated. They did not carve. And I always tell women that whichever situation that you're in at the moment, no matter how bad it is, it's preparing you for the next bigger opportunity. Somebody told me that actually when I was trying to run for vice president of LSK, and I won that seat. But I was in a very difficult situation at the time. And he said, you know what? The moment you put yourself to run for any leadership position, you have attracted many enemies that you know, many that you don't know, and many who are actually forging wars for you as you continue with your journey. So what you're having now, wait a minute, park it on the side and focus. Why? You will meet many more. And it's actually how you deal with this situation today will determine the next step that you're going. So you find, I like telling women, it's not over until it's over. Number one. Number two, never despair. Cry if you must, but you must pick yourself up and move on. Why? There are so many people who are looking up to you. There are so many people who are believing in you. There are so many people your journey is shaping. So you have to take yourself to the limit for those who are coming behind you to be better than you. And you must tell your story. You must design and tell your story by yourself, you know, so that nobody else can tell your story the way they want to tell it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who were you inspired by?
Oh, I have had so many people who have inspired me, both male and female, actually. When I was younger, the same people who mentored me, including the leadership of the LSK bar at the time, still hold my hand to date. So I still have friends, senior friends, who actually ground me to date. I've been inspired by so many women out here in terms of what they have done. I listen a lot to Maya Angelou's poetry. She's my go-to when I'm very low. Her voice alone is enough.
It is.
Her voice is enough. Look at Oprah Winfrey's stories. You know, you just get to listen and to hear what others have gone to, no matter how small a portion of that story is. You know, Harriette Tubman, my namesake, is my go-to cape. You know, like, well, I am Harriette, and Harriette Tubman is one of those people. When you listen to and you read her governance quotes, you actually realize leadership for women actually started long time ago. You know, back home within the African setup, we have the likes of Graça Machel. You know, they've made it. It was not easy. Graça Machel was married by 2 presidents. It's not easy to make 2 presidents, you know, or to be a wife of 2 presidents. In different setups, you know. She must be an iron lady, you know. I'd love to meet her sometime. And then we have, of course, the former president of Ghana, you know. Her story also, having been the first amongst many in Africa, is not a joke. So there are many women out there who have made it. In Kenya, we have so many women who have gone through the journey. They have done quite a lot. The ministers before us, you know, the Zipporah Kitonis, the Margaret Kobias, the Phoebe Asios, the MPs who were there before us. Name it. There are many, you know, and their story is different. When I speak with one of the most senior, Julia Ojiambo, Professor Ojiambo, and the leadership journey that she has gone through. And I remember when I was in campus, I was one of her mentees. When I met her at old age, I told her, yes, I was part of your youth parliamentarians. And she was like, okay, you're so many. Sometimes I don't remember all of you. But the little engagement I had with her when I was in campus, when she was running the youth parliamentarian faction within her foundation, did a lot for us because it exposes us. It exposed us to leadership. So for me, women in leadership must mentor. Men in leadership must mentor the young upcoming ones and give them the right trajectory in terms of proper governance, proper leadership, and even how to just hold the hand of others who want to be like you, but you ensure they are better than you.
What are you working on right now that gives you the most excitement and hope?
Well, my campaign on Safe Home, Safe Spaces is my go-to because it's something that will not die today. It's a long life campaign. When I meet you and I say, how safe are you within your work environment? How safe are you at home? How safe are you out there? For me, that gives me the drive. Our office is also working on perpetrators of GBV. In 2023, our government spent nearly 6.9 billion Kenya shillings to deliver babies to babies. When the numbers were tabulated, we discovered that the motorbike riders, the local taxi drivers are actually highly accused of aggression towards women and girls. So we said we are going to launch our Safe Home, Safe Spaces campaign with them. And guess what? Most of them were acting out of ignorance, you know? And most of them actually have agreed to work with us, to be our change agents, to be our voice for women and girls, and actually to protect them, you know? So on road safety, on the other hand, we're also helping widows within our country because they are highly marginalized. And while people think widows are older women, no. We have very young women who are widowed. And especially because of the motorbike riders, because of road safety. Most of them don't wear the right gear. Most of them don't take care of their passenger. They don't have medical cover. And the government is really pushing that everybody must actually sign up within the universal health coverage, medical for all. So for me, those working with widows, and in some cases we're building for them homes, We are now trying to refurbish schools which are dilapidated and where young girls are affected because they have to go around looking for water, and within that space, that's when they are violated. So can we have schools that have water so that if a young girl has to fetch water, then let her fetch the water to school and go home, instead of leaving home to go and look for water before she comes to school, or leaving school to go look for water before she goes home. So that time is where most young girls are violated. So we are trying to refurbish as many schools within the rural setup to not only equip those schools with water, solar power, make the classrooms good classrooms where kids can be comfortable and protect their feet from having jiggers, to now ensuring that we have a proper school feeding program in all schools, so that when the child leaves home and comes to school, at least they will have a meal. At least they will have clean water. At least they'll be safe within that space. So a lot is going on. And also for widows, for those who have no homes, you try and build for them a shelter. So, yeah.
Yeah. For those listening, those broadly, but specifically women in this case, that have an interest in getting more engaged politically, what advice might you offer?
Number one, they must have a good strategy. Number one, they must make the decision that they must be leaders, because it starts with your mind. How you recalibrate your mind is very important. So you must go for it, and you must go to win, not to lose. And then number two, you must craft a good strategy, a good winning strategy. And number three, you must surround yourself with ideologists, with people who can actually put positive energy every single day. All human beings are not the same. We all have our weaknesses. We all have our faults and weak points. But you must surround yourself with people who feel those weak points and make your weakness look very positive. If you have people who are pulling you within a negative trajectory, do away with them. You don't need them. Just erase them with a rubber, just erase them. Don't even waste time, because they drain you. Every day your work is to you give out so much. You actually need people who now fill your empty pot. So you have two pots. Yours, it's empty all the time because you're giving out so much. You're giving a lot of energy. So you need another pot that people fill in positive energy. So if you have your second pot where everybody around you is feeding negativity, given the amount of work you have to do, the stress that you have every single day, you actually need to erase all of them and feel it afresh. There's nothing wrong with losing people. You better have 3 people around you, but they are quality, than having 1,000 people around you, but they are all shooting you, every day, So you actually need strong pillars around you.
Yeah, I love that. Do you know the term imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because as you're saying it, how do you deal with that?
For me, because of a little experience, I have learned not to receive everything at face value. Yeah. I have learned to always do my research, even when I give someone an assignment, because most people dwell with the factor that you don't know. So you must know. So you must read widely. You must research. So that if, for instance, you want to do a speech today, you wake up and your speech writer is not there, are you going to go blank? So you must do something around that topic, you know, so that when you have to take that assignment, you have something to give. When you're up there and reading a speech, you should be able to turn it around if it doesn't speak to exactly what you want to feed the masses. So for me, I have learned with time that you have always to do your homework also. You have to read widely. You have to interact with people. You must test your teams as well. You must test the strength of your team. You must know the weak points of your teams. You must know their strength. You must also know. So in your team, you'll have the person who makes you laugh. You'll have the person who makes you angry all the time. You know who is the liar in your team. You know who is the backstabber in your team. You have to learn your teams so that nobody has to come and tell you, hey, Amina is like this. You say, no, I know Amina very well. So you don't need to tell me about Amina. You cut it off. Because also you do not want, to have baskets of, water bulbs. And you have to create a system whereby if Amina leaves, you feel it. You are not sitting there crying that Amina has left. You just say, goodbye, Amina. Over to the next person, because you must have rings of performing teams. Because sometimes people will sabotage you because they think you're weak without them, or because they think you can't do. If they leave, one leg is out, or sabotage is always there for women. And those who backstab you are the closest not to you, by the way. They're the people who you trusted. You believed in them, You have given them everything. Before you know it, they are cooking you, and packing you up like pancake. So you have always to have a plan B. You must have a plan A, plan B, and plan C.
What I love, I'm like smiling. If y'all can't see me in this podcast, I'm smiling because it's so true. And you're saying it as a matter of fact. And some people are still surprised when it happens. But it is part of leadership, yeah?
It's part of leadership. Leadership is never easy. First, it's full of surprises. First, you have to deal with loads and loads of issues. And you have to learn how to compactualize it. I think men know this better than women. You see, when a man leaves his house in the morning, he has left home. Home packed in a small box. I'll come back when I get back home. For us women, we carry our home everywhere.
Yeah.
When he drops the child to school, he has dropped the kid to school. Hey, we'll meet at 4:00 and I'm picking you up. But as women, you're calling the teacher all through the day. How is my baby doing? And the teacher is like, you know what? Mom, we got this. Go and work. You go to the media, someone didn't do your eyebrows very well, you carry it forward. Guess what? Men don't care. They rub it and move on. You wake up, you realize, oops, I did not carry my jacket, or I left my jacket. You will be struggling to go get it. For men, they're like, just buy another one. Give me, I can borrow your shirt. Can I have your tie? Over and done with. But as we are Miss Perfects, we have to learn that sometimes you don't need to have it well packaged, Sometimes when shit happens, remove it, Just move on, If your shoe breaks, walk barefoot, go buy another one, or just go and tell, don't take the video full. Just cut it off here because I don't have shoes. But for us women, we carry our baggage everywhere. So for women leaders, I think it's high time. And, sometimes I tell people this and they think, she's mean. But I am actually training you to learn how to do what is important. The things that can be packed or the things that somebody else can do, let somebody else handle it. I remember one of my mentors, and I hope she'll get this clip, Ambassador Monica Juma. She's my counterpart. She's my colleague. When I was appointed as the Women Rights Advisor, she was appointed as the advisor on matters security for the President of Kenya. And, she told me, girl? You just have to get your shit in order. Number one. Number two, get a wife. Get somebody who can do the running around if you can't. And if you have people around you who have attitude, you just remove them, So those two lessons carry me to date, like get a life, get a wife. If you can't do it, get somebody else to do it. If you can't pick your child, call the father or call somebody else to go and pick the child. The child will not die because one day somebody else picked them, somebody you trust, So you have to reorganize your life so that it does not affect everything that you want to do. And you have to create a life-work balance. Get some time off. Get some time to sleep, get some time to check and say, hey, wait a minute, I have to go and see my girls. Because sometimes women, when you get into leadership positions, you lose friends. You will definitely lose your friends because some of them do not want you to get there. Some of them are jealous. Some of them just don't want you to be in that space. And some of them are genuinely scared for you. They're running away. They're saying, hey, for this period when you're dealing with this, I do not want to be part of that. Because they know you. They know your weak points. They know your strengths. They know your weaknesses. And they're like, will she hack it? But then you're saying, well, you know what, guys, we are going to do this. So we have to do this, So you must create the work-life balance at any given time. Get some time off and pamper yourself.
Yeah. Okay, I got one last question, which is, what advice do you have for women on how they can best support other women?
Oh my God, women, you do not have an option. You have no option on this one. You must support other women, whether you like their faces or you don't. Because the biggest enemies, and the men know this, is a woman. If I want to fight you, I'm going to bring a woman to do it because they're going to do it with all the emotions and they're going to bring you down. So for women, for me, my advice to all the women of these worlds, it doesn't matter. If it's a woman on that seat, you got to support her. It doesn't truly matter. And you have to pack your emotions and pack them away, but say the only constituency that women know in this world is a woman. The only thing that women now need to sit and say we must do is to support women. Because if you don't do it, nobody's going to do it, So that constituency for women, I think we always need to call ourselves to a meeting and ask ourselves, what is it that we are doing really? You have Harriette here talking about women empowerment, how to economically empower women. But all the women around me are pulling me. My leg is on the other side. My hand is back being pulled my hair is being pulled in different directions by other people. So it's you women who needs to come and reorganize it. Pull Harriette together so that Harriette can not only serve a small community, but can serve all the women. Not that my success is actually as good as the women who are within that space or the people who are surrounding us. So women in leadership actually sometimes feel empty. And that is for all leaders. But for women, it's worse because they are battered 24 hours, and they need people to build their muscle, to continue building their muscle into that space that they're in. And it will only be better if other women step up and support all women in leadership. For instance, you're a CEO of a blue chip company. All the women under you must support you. Must. And I'm using the word must because guess what? There's nobody else who's going to support women. And if you do well in that position, you've actually opened space for another woman. If you don't do well, men will always take those positions because it's theirs anyway. So women have a lot of work. When a woman CEO stands up and say, hey, I need help in this, we want to see a beehive of other women moving towards that direction. Say, hey, today she woke up and says she wants to do this. So what support are we giving to ensure that she actualizes that project? That is lacking in us women in most of the time. But for men, a man must come here with an idea. Others will laugh and say, okay, your idea doesn't look all that, but let's patch it up and make it better. They patch it up, make it better, and push him to deliver. But behind that table, all of them have a business deal around that one idea, And so they will ensure they support this leader to perform because the compartments of business that they are going to benefit when he's sitting there as the king, they know. And they know their value within those compartments. So they don't have to push and shove. But for women, we are still yet to learn that within a leadership set, there has to be one leader at any given time. Until that person leaves, then you can put yourself. But don't work to remove this person before you support them to perform. Because what you're doing, you're watering down that seat for a woman. So that everybody will come and say, but we had a woman the other day, she didn't perform. So by virtue of that, hell no, you women stay on the side and hey, the deputy takes over automatically because the seat ideally is for a man, only that they didn't say it. And you as a woman, you are just passing time. So women must learn to guard those seats and guard them jealously. Yeah.
That sounds like a mic drop.